guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today I'm going to be using the kind buzzwords along with the dies and then the Harvest Bloom background. I did show you the Spring Leaves 2 color plate because I thought I was going to use it, but I didn't end up doing it. So what you see me doing here is I wanted to be able to stamp my stamp again if I needed to. Turns out I did, so it's a good thing I did this. But the way that I do that without having to flip my card upside down on top of my stamp, which obviously I cannot repeat. So the way I do that to use my MISTI is I use a tape runner and I put just down a line of tape runner. I kind of tap my fingers over it so it's not too sticky, but this way I don't need any of the magnets and my paper will stay where I want it so I can get edge to edge stamping. And then I am going to remember to treat my watercolor paper with my anti-static tool, and then I'm going to stamp in Honeybee clear embossing ink. For some reason, I don't know why, with all the rushing, I guess maybe I'm rushing, I have been forgetting to use my anti-static tool. So I was able to, I had like a little bit of a gap at the top and the bottom, and so I did scoop my magnets on there, but I'm going to be honest, I don't really think it did a whole lot of anything. Watercolor paper is notoriously difficult to get a good impression on, and big background stamps are notoriously difficult to get a good impression with. Because you can have air bubbles, and there's like little tricks that you can use. So I knew that I was kind of stacking the odds against myself to get a really good impression, and so I decided that I was going to stamp it twice, just to make sure that I got everything where I needed to get it. And then, guys, I still didn't get everything where I needed to get it. I think a big portion of this is because I get so impatient with the tapping of the ink pad. Like I sped it up so you wouldn't have to watch me sit there for 800 years, growing old and, getting whiskers and my children, having their own children, while I was inking up that stamp. But it does take forever, and I think I just get impatient with it, and so I don't always get good coverage. That's on me. So here I am using the Wow bright white embossing powder, and I'm kind of like just checking it out. I could see already before I heat set it that there was a spot that I missed. Here's me hoping that I just didn't get powder on it. That ain't it. It has no embossing ink. And so I'm going to go ahead and heat set it, and then I'm just going to have to suck it up, buttercup, and stamp it again. It can be a little bit difficult to line them up white on white. But fortunately I am using the MISTI, and so I don't really have to worry too much about it. It's not foolproof. It's not 100%. There can be, movement of the paper because I don't have it right up against an edge. I just kind of have it free floating in the middle. But what is going to help me out with lining up my stamp a second time is, remember that anti-static tool with all that powder? It leaves an outline of the card on my MISTI, and so I can just drop it right back in that same square that I previously used, and then I should be able to stamp right on top of it. Don't worry about stamping over embossed like powder that's already there. You can see my little outline, but that's already heat set. If it's in the powder form, though, you can't stamp on it. But once it's heat set, you can stamp over it. And then once you apply heat, everything will just kind of melt back into each other. And it's not, you won't even be able to tell. So here I'm just really applying the embossing ink to the area that I need. And then I'm going to just CPR it to death. I'm going to revive it and I'm going to kill it again. And so I did it a little too much. I CPR'd it a little too much. And then when I went to put my powder on, I had actually pressed the negative space down into the petals of the rose. And so I did have to go in and clean that up. But nonetheless, I did get the impression that I was looking for. And then I just went ahead and heat set that again. And so all's well that ends well. It was totally fine. You would never be able to tell that I didn't stamp it perfectly the first time. Which is good because I'm not perfect, because nobody's perfect. I'm not the Jesus. So yeah, you just sometimes you got to roll with it. If I couldn't get it lined back up, I probably would have just cut that part out, and left it out. But it ended up working out. So I pulled out my Zig Clean Color Markers. It's been a while since I've used them. and I was really just looking for spring. I'm gonna be honest, it's been cold here, it's been snowy. We're in the middle of March, it's Ohio. I get it. We go through this every year where there's like a glimmer of hope on the horizon of spring, and then Mother Nature dashes our dreams. But the rest of this week is supposed to be in the 50s and 60s, so that's promising outside of the mud monsters that my dogs will become. Back to the card. So there's a couple of different ways that you can watercolor with Zig Clean Color Markers. I really wasn't looking to have to do multiple layers or having to like go back in with my Copics or anything like that. I wanted to do all of it with the Zigs and get results that I was happy with. And in order for me to do that, it means I have to take the time to kind of do it, quote unquote, the right way. For me, it's the right way for me. And that is putting the pigment down direct to paper from the Zig Clean Color brush marker where I want it to be the darkest. And then I get clean water. I add that to the edge of the petal or the edge of the leaf, whichever, whatever I'm coloring. And then I take the clean water to the pigment and just kind of let it bloom out. And it gives me a much more watercolory look, which is what I like. I don't want it to be solid. If I wanted it to be solid, I'd have used markers. And so I like the gradation that you can get with watercolors, and sometimes there's some white spots in there, sometimes that you could see the way that the water dried and the movement, and that's what I'm going for. So this is what works for me, and I will do the entire background in the same way. For the vast majority of the background, I only used one color. I did mix it up when it came to like the purple berries. I used a little bit of like a blue violet and a purple. And then the greens I kind of just mixed up all over. We'll talk about that too. So we're 7 minutes into this video. Hopefully you've hung out through my explanation because there's a sale. Yes, there is. Honeybee is having a green week because it's St. Patrick's Day. So all things green are on sale in the shop for 15% off. There's no code needed. It's added to your cart. After you put it in your cart, you'll be able to see the price of it with the 15% off. This background stamp is one of the ones that's on sale. A lot of things that people don't realize about Honeybee, which is really very, their store is very convenient for me because they don't just sell their own brand stamps. They sell Gina K envelopes, and they sell cardstock, like Craft Perfect cardstock. They sell Nuvo glitter paste. So they have all kinds of things that are in there, and so typically I can kind of one-stop shop it for like my Nina or my watercolor paper, and so all of these things, there's several of them, all the green items, pens, markers, paints, glimmer paste, mousse, sequins, like all the green things are on sale. But then there's also other things that are green, like flowers, like this background says flowers. Those are green, and so those are on sale. We got to talk about the card again. So here what I'm doing is I didn't really have any gradation in that particular petal, and so I went back in with a damp brush. No, it wasn't filled with water. I had dried it off. It was just damp, and then I let the brush absorb the water so that I could kind of control the pigment that was in there, because it was just too one tone, and in order to make it match the rest of the flower, I needed to suck up some of that pigment. You can also do that with a paper towel, but with the paper towel, it's going to suck it up from the entire petal, whereas if you go in with just a damp brush, and you'll see me do it a couple of times here. I know we're sped up. I had to, guys, I had to. I know that we're sped up quite a bit, but you will see me do it a couple of other times where I am trying to, absorb some of that pigment to make it look like it has different tones in it, instead of like we're just using one color, which is really all we're doing. PPS, this particular Zig Clean Color Marker, this hot pink, is my favorite color. I know blue is my boyfriend, and we're going to do a blue flower, which I will love. but I love this hot pink. I think it is so pretty for flowers. I cannot stop myself. So yeah, that's just something to note. I will link below the sale if you'd like to shop through that link. I would always greatly appreciate it. But then there's also stamps, dies, cover plates. Like there's all kinds of stuff on in this particular sale that's all 15% off. So I would encourage you to check that out. The spring blooms, which is a very similar one to this one. I actually have a video with that. I'll link it below too if you're watching on my YouTube channel, so that you can check that out. If you're looking to, if you've picked up that stamp set and you're looking for some inspiration, I have that one I believe is Copics. I think I colored it with Copics, and not watercolor. So you kind of got two different ways to color very similar style stamp sets. Yeah, so we're just going to be doing a lot of watercoloring. This whole thing took me probably like 2 hours to watercolor. Watercoloring just takes me a long time. Oh, here's the blues, my boyfriend flower. This one's real pretty. I love this blue color. But yeah, it did take me a while. Watercoloring just usually does take me a while. But like I said, that's because I didn't want to go back over it. I wanted it to be a watercolor piece. And we're going to get 3 cards out of it. Like, I know everybody gets nervous to cut up their image, especially after you spend all this time watercoloring it. Don't. It's going to be fine. You're going to get 3 cards out of the deal. Or maybe 2. Maybe, if you want to cut it a different way. I cut mine a certain way and I ended up with 3, but you could cut yours differently and end up with 2. You could just do it as one whole background panel if you want. I was just like, if I'm going to spend 2 hours on it, I'm going to get me some cards. Yes, I am. Get me some cards out of it. So as far as today was crazy. Like, poor Miss Caitlin still has her cough. And her pediatrician told us that it would possibly take her 2 to 4 weeks to get over her cough because this is like her first real cold and she doesn't have an immune system. But that poor baby coughed for a half an hour this morning before she finally woke herself up. Her dad and I were both up, just laying in bed listening to it because there's nothing we can do for it. But she just coughed and coughed and coughed, and she still has. We're hoping that means it's kind of breaking up. But interestingly enough, according to our pediatrician, I guess they're even finding this in older children because we've been masked for 2 years. That they're finding that even older kids are taking longer to get over colds because their immune system hasn't been strengthened by being exposed to, different viruses and illnesses, which I thought was really interesting. Totally makes sense. I totally get that. But I still feel bad for my poor little jelly bean with her sad little cough. So got up this morning, did that. And I don't think... I know that I'm busier than a lot of people, okay? I have 2 businesses that I own. I have a full-time job. I have 2 children. I have 2 dogs. 1 husband. Doubles of everything else. And I know that I am not even the busiest person that I know, but I'm relatively busy. And I just don't feel like parents ever get enough credit, for just trying to do all the things for everyone. And there's always something, something that just props up or crops up and gets you by surprise. And then before you know it, the things you thought you were going to get done are not the things that you get done. And like I got up this morning with Miss Caitlin while I was getting ready to make her bottle. Eric got up, so he fed her. I unloaded the dishwasher. And then we kind of talked about what our game plan was for the day. Back to the card for a second. So here you're going to see that I skipped a portion of it. I didn't not show you anything you hadn't already seen. I only skipped the portion of me coloring more of like those little like freesia kind of flowers and another one of those. I think it's a dahlia. So I had already showed it to you, and so I felt like it was safe to cut it out. For this rose, I really wanted, like I said, light bright spring colors, really feeling the spring lately. And so, but I felt the orange was going to be like a little bit too much. And so I used a lighter orange and a lighter red and ended up with kind of like this peachy pink colored rose. And I'm very happy with it. I think the color is really pretty and I think that it goes very well with the other colors. So don't be afraid to kind of mix your colors, whether you're using Zig Clean Color Markers or traditional watercolors, just to kind of see what you're going to get. Remember, watercolor is very forgiving, so if you do it and you don't like it, then just add water and put a paper towel over it to soak it back up, and do that as many times as you need until you have a relatively clean palette to put a different color over. Um, so anyway, so we kind of talked about what our game plan was for the day. I came up to start working on a card, and woke Peanut up to see, because I can't let it, as much as I would like to. Daylight savings times, I think, was part of what like got us all jacked up today too. But like I couldn't let him sleep in too long because he's got school tomorrow. But also it's daylight savings time, so I know he's using an hour of sleep. So I split the difference and I gave him an extra half an hour of sleep, and then I woke him up. So what would have been normally on the weekends I let him sleep till 10. I woke him up at what would have been 9:30. So anyway, I got him up. I worked on my card for a little while. Eric sat on the couch and held Caitlin while she napped because literally she will not sleep unless you're holding her. um, and then went downstairs, got Nathan's breakfast together. Eric had to do a couple of things. He had to go pick up some furniture and go get his take-home car. There was something else that he needed to do too. I can't remember what it was. Pick up furniture or whatever. So he was taking Caitlin to my mom's so that I could work in the craft room for a little bit and she could kind of visit with Nan. And then Peanut stayed home. Now that he's getting a little bit older, I know that he still adores my parents, because he's always like, can I go? Can I go? Can I go? But he's kind of torn because he also he's old enough to play with his friends, and he really only has the opportunity to do that when he's here. He doesn't have any friends in the neighborhood at his dad's house. And so I think he's kind of torn about how to spend his time because he wants to see Nana and Papa, but he also wants to play with his friends. He tries to strike a balance. But anyway, so he went and played at a friend's for a little bit. Eric brought the furniture home, then went to go do his take-home car. I finished my card, started editing. He came home, cleaned the bathroom, cleaned our bedroom because he's awesome like that. I know that that's not common for a lot of people, especially if you are older. Well, you know what? That's not even true because my middle sister, and this arrangement works for them. This is no judgment I by any means, but they have he does the outside, she does the inside rule. And I don't know, I just always felt like you only got to cut the grass once a week. You know what I'm saying? Like, not that it's not a contribution, it certainly is. Eric does our outside things. But like in the winter, you only have to snowplow if it snows. What are the outside things in the winter? Like, can you vacuum something or dust it? I'm very fortunate that my husband's awesome and he does those things, and that's not an issue between us, but it was also something that was very important to me to find in a partner. So back to the card. Here I'm trimming down the end pieces, and then I'm going to cut this thing apart. I know you're going to cringe. I know you're going to be frightened. Just hang tight. So I kind of looked at it a couple of different ways, and I decided that I wanted that big pink flower. And so I decided I was going to cut out of that top left corner there a 3x3 square. And then I was going to be able to use that for a card, which would then give me what is that, two and a half? Yeah, 3, because it's 5.5. So it would give me a 2.5 wide section by 4.25 to use on another card, and then it would give me this 1.5 by 2.5 inch little teeny tiny section. I shouldn't say little teeny tiny. It's enough to carry a card with a larger sentiment, which is what I have. So here I'm stamping all of the sentiments that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to trim them out into labels, and then kind of do some more die cutting and start building my card. So he came home, cleaned the bathroom, cleaned the bedroom. I finished editing. I went to go get Caitlin from my mom's. Peanut came with me. When I got home, I immediately started making dinner. We had dinner. From dinner, Peanut, one of his chores is to do the cups and plates. I don't make him do the pots and pans for right now. As he gets older, I'm sure I will make him do those too, because chores are important. They teach responsibility. Here I'm cutting out the kind Honey Cuts the dies, and I'm using like a light gray, and then I'm going to stack these on top of each other. I'm going to use each one for all 3 cards. And so then Peanut did the cups and plates, Eric did the pots and pans, and then I gave Miss Caitlin her bath. And then after I was done with her bath and all the lotioning and the jams and everything else, Eric fed her last bottle while I filled her humidifier for the night, and then put Peanut to bed. And as I came up here to do this voiceover, he was sitting on the couch holding a sleepy baby so I could do my voiceover. And that's our whole day. Isn't that crazy? I don't even know what I accomplished. I really don't. But I know that I have not stopped moving all day long, and neither has he. So, whew. I mean, it's a lot. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot. And so I'm hoping maybe to get, I don't know, a half an hour to sit on the couch together before we have to go to bed, and then start our our day all over again. It's wild. So for the card building, all of the panels, the watercolor panels, were all popped up on foam. This is the one that I told you, the 3x3. And then in order to make this flush, I'm going to add foam to just the bottom of the kind die cut. And then I'm going to glue the top of it. And then I just glued the other part of the sentiment that says you are too kind. And I'm going to, just like I said, just glue that down flat and stack up the other part with foam. I did this same thing for the larger panel, where it's kind of, part of it is flush on the watercolor panel and part of it is popped up on foam, just because I like everything to kind of lay nicely. And I guess for me, like as a design element, it kind of makes the card feel like it all goes together. You know what I'm saying? Here I forgot about the D. That was terrible. It was my fault. I forgot that it would be hanging off the edge, and so I didn't put any foam up top, and I needed to, so I just kind of slipped it behind the back of it. For this next one, you're going to see I stamped this thank you for being so kind, and then I laid the kind on there, and I realized it was horrible. Awful, horrible. Because I cannot make them go together. It's not a good design, because all of my watercolor panel, my sentiment, and my die cut are all almost exactly the same length. It's all bad. So then what does my genius self do? I was like, I'll pull out the stamp. Maybe I'll do that. Okay, Kelly, the stamp is the same size as the die. It's the same size. What was my thought process? I don't know. Normally I'm like, hey, I don't start over, but really the only thing I had done on here was stamped this sentiment, and so I called it. Yes, I did. And I moved on because I should have stacked it. And so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to stack my sentiment so that there is a flow and it's a better design. I have my watercolor piece where it's going to go. I have my die cut laying there so I can line it up. And then I'm going to use the tape trick. You know, I love the tape trick. Some people cut their stamps. I can't bring myself to do it. Cut up my watercolor panel. Yes. Cut my stamps. No, ma'am. So here I stamped the for being so, and then watch how I clean this. I clean it, I scrub it, I scrub it, I clean it, scrub it, clean it. And then I still take a scrap piece of paper and stamp it off because it was still dirty. It was still dirty. I stamped it 3 times before I got a clean impression so that I can move it to stamp the thank you portion. So when you're using the tape trick to stack sentiments, please don't skip that step. You're going to be so sad, so sad if you stamp a like shadow dirty part of your sentiment onto your card. You'll be sad about it. I'll be sad for you. Don't skip that step. So now that I have that done, I can go ahead and pop up that panel on foam, and I just put it in the bottom right hand corner. It really just showcases this dahlia flower, but it's got a little bit of blue, a little bit of pink, a little bit of green. I'm cool with it. I think that it's pretty enough to be a design element on the card. This kind I did not pop up. I just glued it down flat because it's not really flat. You know what I'm saying? It's already 2 layers of cardstock glued together, and then it's glued on top of a third. So for the last card with the watercolor, the largest watercolor panel, like I said, I did the same thing with the first one. I will spare you because we've already been together for 25 minutes, and I'm sure that as I recapped my day for you, you probably had a similar day, and maybe you would like to, I don't know, have some time for yourself. Or maybe this is your time for yourself. That would be nice if we were spending time together and that was your time for yourself. So here I'm just going to, like I said, it's going to be part foam, part glue, and then these are all 3 cards. I didn't add any glitters to them. I know that's shocking, but because I use my watercolor paintbrush with my Perfect Pearls. There's almost always shimmer in my watercolor, and that was enough for me. So check out that sale. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate you, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.